From Meditation and Its Practices, a book I found in our bookstore, our noble bookstore, Swami G. Adishwaranandaji. I'd like to talk about Japa. J-A-P-A. To you, most of you, it's chanting a mantra. But I'm just going to use his terms and I'm going to paraphrase him for my convenience to make my points. But meditation and its practices. Japa. He says it's the spiritual practice of repeating a sacred word or phrase referring to the divine. Japa, the spiritual practice of repeating a sacred word or phrase referring to the divine. It can be a word, a verse, a short prayer, can be a phrase, can be a mystic syllable. The purpose of the repetition, see, why are we doing that? We often forget why we're doing it. So we just do it, and we don't let it do its thing. It's important to let your chanting do what it can do if you are chanting a particular mantra. The purpose of the repetition is to bring the mind to a state of devotion and concentration. We chant to get to a state of devotion and concentration. That's what it's for. So let's say you're chanting it and you're not using it to free the heart and come to a state of devotion. You see, you've got anger, fear, guilt, grief, arrogance, prejudice. You keep chanting, you can shed those fetters that bind your consciousness and have love in your heart. Just love, feel wonderful. You can have a wonderful feeling. That state of devotion. And also, chanting is to concentrate the mind. It's to help you focus the mind instead of it wandering all over the place. It's not just, I'm going to do the number I'm supposed to do, and God's going to come like a slot machine in Vegas, and one day, as a result of my persistence, give me $1 million or something. The idea is you're doing it every day to get into a state of devotion and concentration. Centeredness, not wandering. And don't do vain repetitions. Don't block the mantra or the japa, the word or phrase that you're chanting. Don't allow it to just be pointless or a sweet little time in the day when you have high thoughts. It's meant to get you to a state of love flowing and mind focused. State of devotion and concentration. That's what you're doing every day when you chant. You're chanting to come to a state of devotion and concentration that ultimately becomes permanent. You just live in a state of devotion all the hours of the day, and your mind is focused on God and the world in the context of God as you go about doing your thing. So that's why chanting is done. Gee, isn't it nice to think about that? That's why, what it does, and that's what it'll do for you, and give it a chance to do it for you, to bring you to a state of devotion and concentration. The practice of japa is as old as religion and the spiritual path itself. Japa, J-A-P-A, chanting mantras. Japa purifies, sheds the tension, the turbulence. Japa purifies and transforms. It'll transform you. So it can do quite a mighty thing for you. When a seeker repeats a sacred word with faith and fervor, now we were talking about zeal and enthusiasm. Fervor is one of those zeal and enthusiasm words. When a seeker, seeking God, happiness, harmony, wholeness, when a seeker repeats a sacred word with faith and fervor, those would help. You know? It releases the power of holiness. Releases the power of holiness, which fills your mind. Chanting releases the power of holiness. Where does that come from? Releases the power of holiness, which fills your mind with devotion. That's the feeling of love coming on instead of all those other feelings. Leads it to concentration, devotion, leads it to concentration, And then concentration, we become absorbed in the divine being we're thinking about, or the divine infinite spirit we're thinking about. Leads to concentration, absorption, and illumination. Absorption in that reveals the divine. Illumination. We're awake spiritually. That's why we chant. Why do you chant? Here's why. Rescues the mind. Quotes on Japa. And there were a bunch. I just picked my favorites because they were mainly short, succinct. A spiritual man, woman, attains his or her goal through japa alone. Whatever else he or she may be doing or may not perform. That's from the ancient book Manu. Spiritual person attains his or her goal through japa alone, whatever else he or she may or may not perform. It will take you there. It'll take you to devotion, concentration, absorption, and illumination. Okay, next quote. That which does away with the sins and the karmas committed in one's whole lifetime is japa. Japa wears away at those errors and ignorances which cause us so much pain, and others too. Sin, missing the mark. Sin, bad causes that have bad effects. That which does away with sins committed in one's whole lifetime is called japa. Japa is said to be the foremost of all dharmas. It's just the leading thing to do. It's from the Mahabharata, which has the Gita in it, the great battle. The Gita's inside, contained within the Mahabharata. Next one. By the repetition of the mantra comes the realization of the chosen deity. You want to get to know the Lord of your heart better, your Ishta, the form of God you love. Chanting the name of the Ishta helps you gradually get free of the bric-a-brac that keep you from being spiritually aware and give you spiritual awareness by which you behold the presence of that chosen deity. And that's something Patanjali said. Once you take that name, all your sin vanishes. Sin meaning these potentials within you, which are causes, they have all these effects that you're going to have to go through. That's going to take time. All the karma takes time. And it takes lifetimes to get through all the consequences of our ignorance. So what can we do to cut through? So here, this is cute. This is from Chaitanya. Once you take the name, you do it once, and you focus and you stay with it a while, your sin vanishes, your confusion vanishes. You repeat it a second time, and the Lord is yours. So you chant to get free, and then you chant to have realization. Chaitanya. I bet you recognize this one. I drink no ordinary wine, but the wine of everlasting bliss, as I repeat my mother Kali's name. Sri Ramakrishna. I drink no ordinary wine. It is like an intoxicant. You get bliss as you chant God's name. You feel it in your mouth, in your heart, in your head. I drink no ordinary wine, but the wine of everlasting bliss, as I repeat my mother Kali's name. Oh, I love this quote from Ramakrishna. Think about it. A mantram. What might can a mantram have? There is a great power in the seed of God's name. There is a great power in the seed of God's name. It destroys ignorance. A seed is tender, and the sprout is soft. You've seen them. Look at mung beans. A seed is tender, and the sprout soft. still it pierces the hard ground. That little soft seed of mantra can pierce all kinds of hard, stuck states of consciousness. That mantra can go in there like a seed and break. It pierces the hard ground, goes down into it and flowers. Kind of amazing power of chanting. The mantra purifies the body. So I selected a number of these for pointing out things they can do. The mantra purifies the body. A man becomes pure by repeating the mantra of God. That's Sharada Devi speaking. The mantra purifies the body. A person becomes pure by repeating the mantra of God. As wind removes a cloud, so does the name of God disperse the cloud of worldliness. That's Srima, Sharada Devi. As wind removes a cloud, so does the name of God disperse the cloud of worldliness. Srima. By Japa, I had to paraphrase this one quite a bit, chop it around. By Japa and other spiritual practices, the power of the sense organs is subdued, because very often the eyes and the ears, just always wanting to know, like a dog wanting to chase the car, whether it makes any sense or not, and whether you got killed or not, the dog still wants to chase that car. And our senses are like dogs. They chase our five senses. So by chanting, the sense organs get calmed down, and your mind gets to go within, center. By japa and other spiritual practices, the power of the sense organs is subdued. Srima. The easiest and best way of solving the problems of life is to take the name of God in silence. Just silently chant God's name. The easiest, best way. Why? Because it takes you to your higher consciousness and your connection with God and your higher wisdom, your higher attunement. The easiest and best way of solving the problems of life is to take the name of God, to chant it in silence. Sharada Devi said that. Japa is repeating the holy name. This is Swami Vivekananda. Japa is repeating the holy name. Through this repeating of the holy name, the devotee rises to the infinite. From finite consciousness, locked in a body, to infinite spiritual awareness. Swami Vivekananda. If you chant his name, all of your bonds will be broken, and you will become fearless. You will find immortality. You'll find that part of you that lives on forever. That's Swami Brahmananda, Ramakrishna's great devotee. So those are some quotes. Now in my remaining time, I'd like to just touch upon the different methods of japa. So you know a lot about this, I talk a lot about it, but let's just see this categorization here, which is very nice. And I don't know how to say some of these, but I'll just use my English pronunciation. Vachika japa, vachika, V-A-C-H-I-K-A. In this japa, in this way of chanting the word, phrase, syllable, the seeker repeats the sacred word audibly. The seeker repeats the sacred word or phrase or syllable or verse, short verse. So we're going to do some of these just to be clear on them because they're kind of fun. So you could chant the word Om, that's considered the universal mantra, or you could chant Asato Masat Gamayo, which means lead me from the unreal to the real. It actually means lead me from attachment to the unreal to attachment to the real. But the brief translation is Asato Masat Gamayo, lead me from the unreal to the real. Or just chant Om. And the idea is you have to say it loud enough so you can hear it. And we're all going to be kind of like a beehive, because we're going to have all these words flying through the air. But that's all right. This is Vachika Japa. And we're going to pick one of these, Om or Asato Masat Gamaya, whichever one you want. And we're going to say it loud enough so we can hear it. And just chant it a while, and you'll notice it tends to make your mind clearer and your heart purer, and you're less encumbered. So we're going to do Vachika Japa. Are you ready to play? Okay, for a few minutes, chanting audibly, the sacred word audibly, loud enough so that you can hear it. Away we go. Well, that's quite powerful, isn't it? Of course, it's special around here. But we teach that out loud will just automatically, as your energy interiorizes, will automatically become whisper chanting. And some people just go into it consciously, and I recommend you just do it out loud till you get calm enough and it goes into whisper chanting automatically. However, this upamsu sounds Japanese. Upamsu, Japa. Upamsu, upamsu, Japa. In this way, just notice the subtlety. Repeating the sacred word semi-audibly by moving only the tongue and the lips. You don't let anything else move. I don't know how precise that is, but we call it whisper chanting. Anyway, moving only the tongue and the lips semi-audibly. So maybe that's a little louder than whisper. I don't know. But we should do this one. Repeating the sacred word, and notice what the difference is from the first one. Repeating the sacred word semi, just very softly, by moving only the tongue and the lips. And you begin to just feel the awareness centered there on the tip of the tongue and the lips. Anyway, let's try this one for a few minutes. Semi-audibly, half-audibly, by moving only the tongue and the lips. Let's choose Om or Asato Masat Gamayo and enjoy this semi-audible chanting of Japa. All right. And you know what the next one is. Manasa Japa. Repeating the sacred word mentally without allowing the tongue and lips to move. Now you'll notice whether this is good for you or not. This is a higher, finer, more powerful way if you remain alert and concentrated. It's a higher chanting. But for those who lack the necessary concentration and alertness of mind, you should go back to the first two that we just did. So whenever your mind isn't focused and is drifting, or you're sleepy, you're not alert, you should go back to out loud or whisper. Because it's not good for you to just do mental things while just being lazy in there and lacking in alertness and just being passive. So, repeating the sacred word mentally without allowing the tongue and lips to move. We've gone from whisper to mental, and we're having a lovely time in here, so let's do this a couple minutes and see the effect. And then just notice its effect. Just stop doing it mentally and just see, what's your mind doing? Is it clear? Has your mind become a lot clearer? You guys are so high. Okay. So one more before we have to conclude. Okay, Likita Japa. And this is a wonderful practice. And if you've got a lot of subconscious junk, it's really good to just start writing God's name. Likita Japa, writing the sacred word, like the word Om. You just, that three-looking thing. You could write it. I've done it for lots of times. I love it. I just write Om. Fill pages writing Om. It's just fun. But for now, you can write with your writing hand in the palm of the other hand. You could write Om. It is so good for purifying the subconscious and freeing you. And it's so good for taking if your thoughts are pretty wild and all over the place, it's so good for reining them in. Just write on the palm or write on a page over and over again some particular mantra. But let's say I've initiated you in a mantra. Never write it down. It'd have to be some general mantra that you'd work with, please. I like a lot of people would write Om Rama or Om or Om Krishna or Om Christ. Those would be fine. Om Divine Mother. Okay, so to conclude, let's do Likhita, Likhita Japa, writing the sacred word or sacred mantra continuously or for a fixed number of times every day. You could just say, I'm going to write for an hour, or I'm going to write for 15 minutes, or I'm going to fill this page, or I'm going to write 500 times, or whatever. But it sounds too much like me staying after school on that 500 times. Anyway, so just try the effect of writing a sacred word continuously. It helps you, it makes you pay attention, and it kind of gets your mind out of the ditch and all the other places, out of the grave or where it's stuck, gets the mind back. So writing the sacred word, Likita Japa. and just relax. See if there's any effect. If you ever say, I have nothing to do, which I bet you don't say, but if you say, I have nothing to do, then why don't you write God's name for an hour or so? You'll find it just so refreshing, so renewing to write God's name. Okay. There's more, but we'll just consider those the main ones and see if we can get back to the rest of these sometime. I've had a good time. If you wish to pronam, you may do so. Anande Raho. May you live in divine joy eternally. Have a most pleasant week. God bless. See you soon.